Hello everyone, welcome to today's task TFT-30. We are studying paper 2 and we have reached the fifth thinker in Indian sociology, Louis Dumont. We have already covered 4 thinkers, G.S. Gray in Ideology, M.N. Srinivas, Structural Functionalism, A.R. Desai, Marxist Sociology, Yogendra Singh, Modernization of Indian Tradition. We hope you are having your syllabus of paper 2 by your side as you are watching this lecture. Now let us give you a brief introduction. Louis Dumont was a French sociologist, Indologist as well as anthropologist. You must know that the early sociologists were mostly anthropologists, and like G.S. Gray, Louis Dumont was also an Indologist. That means he believed in the book view or studying the classical texts, the scriptures, in order to understand Indian society. He stressed on the study of South India, and he believed in, he was a follower of ethnography. What do we understand by ethnography? Ethnic means tribals, races. So he studied the ethnicity of different areas of India, and his major study was, as you must be knowing, Homo hierarchicus, or the study of caste system. He was a learner of many languages. He was a prisoner of war in Germany, so he knew German. He learned Sanskrit, Hindi and Tamil. Now, if you remember Indology, it is known as the book view, and we studied different art, architecture, sculpture in order to understand how people lived in ancient times, in pre-independence times in India. Now for Dumont, his focus was on the caste system, and he tried to understand the ideology behind the caste system, or the basis, ideological basis or the foundation of the caste system. What made people follow the caste system? Why were there different occupations? Why were some occupations they were thought of as superior and some were thought of as inferior? Why some people lived outside the main village? Why were they considered untouchables? Why couldn't they draw water from the public wells? All these things Dumont was very much interested in, so he wanted to understand the ideology behind the caste system which was prevalent in India, and for that, in order to understand it, he studied the classical text available to him in depth. So because he was following the classical text, his perspective was known as the Ideological perspective. At the same time, he was studying the structure, a major portion of the social structure of India. That is why his approach, you can say, was a structuralist approach, because his purpose was to understand the structure, a very important portion of the structure of Indian society. So his view was both ideological and structuralist in order to understand the caste system, and for this purpose he studied the structure of a particular any village. Louis Dumont, he was a French sociologist, and from there he inherited a different perspective, which was that of using Indology in sociology. And for him, Indian sociology was not simply sociology, but it was something which lay at the confluence, that means at the intersection. Let us assume that this is Indology and this line is sociology. then at the intersection lay Indian sociology. So for Louis Dumont, Indian sociology was a special case, because in order to understand Indian sociology, in order to understand Indian society, one had to understand the culture, the traditions, which could only be understood by understanding or reading in depth the classical text. And this, because this method was known as Indology, that is why Indology became a very important portion of Indian sociology. Now, what were the areas of study? What did Louis Dumont study? He studied many themes. For example, village community, caste, marriage, kinship. Now, marriage, kinship, all these are related to the caste system. Renunciation, this is also a part of the Hindu philosophy. Then he also studied a bit about nationalism, because those were the times where India was getting independent. So this was also a part of the Indian people's thinking. So he studied a bit about nationalism. Now he studied both North India as well as South India. In North India, he spent about 15 months in a village of Gorakhpur, UP, and then he spent some time in Tamil Nadu, and he studied Piramalai Kallars, which were the subcaste, and now although they are in the OBC category, but that time they belong to somewhere in the middle of the caste system. So his focus was a particular caste or subcaste in Tamil Nadu. Even though he studied North India also, but his main focus was South India. Why? He focused on South India because he believed that the Aryan people from North, they had an interaction with the southern Dravidians. Okay, and because of this interaction, what happened? A new kind of Hinduism, or the post-Vedic Hinduism, it came into being, and it was a very important component of the configuration of classical India. So this interaction was responsible for a new era of Hinduism, which was post-Vedic Hinduism, and it contributed a lot to classical India, or the socio-cultural part of classical India. That is why he was interested in this interaction, and mainly in the South India. Now, what kind of methodology did he use? Was he a believer of only book view? No. He was involved in intensive field work, because as you have seen here, that he spent so many months in a village of Gorakhpur. So he was doing field study. So he was a firm believer of intensive field work as well as study of classical text. So he believed in the field view as well as the book view. He did not discriminate between these two views just because he favored Indology. Now, before coming to the beginning of his approach, or before finally making up his mind that okay, from now onwards I am going to study Indian society, or maybe I am going to write a book or a monograph on Indian society, before that he had certain views about India. He observed India, and then he found that something was common in all the places where he visited. This was the caste system. Now, when he was going to study the caste system, he understood that if there was any other sociologist who was going to study the caste system, he or she would immediately maybe be angered, maybe be provoked by the caste system and the discrimination which was prevalent. And for any other thinker or sociologist, the caste system would seem to be an obstacle to economic progress of India. But for Dumont, he could see that the caste system had certain positive functions. That is why it existed. And he also believed that this caste system had something to teach the Western society, and this principle was a fundamental principle, a fundamental social principle of hierarchy. This caste system was stable and a powerful concept which had certain positive functions, and it also taught something to the Western world. So, since he was thinking about the Western world and being from France, when he saw India, when he made up his mind that he was going to study Indian society, immediately there was a sort of comparison in his mind about the society that he was going to study and the society that he came from. Between these two societies, there were certain factors which probably came to his notice. Now, what were these factors? He understood that any other sociologist or any sociologist who had studied in India previously, for them, the caste system was a kind of social stratification system, and it was an extreme form of stratification because there was segments between different caste, there was discrimination. So, like his contemporary, he could also have thought of the caste system as a social stratification system, but he did not think so. He knew that there was an ideology behind the caste system, and he also understood that India had a huge literary heritage. It was a superior civilization and it also had a popular culture, because India was an ancient civilization which had something to teach the West. And just because the caste system had a hierarchy and the West was an egalitarian society, it did not mean that India was in any way inferior. It simply meant that equality and hierarchy, there were two facts, just like Durkheim's social facts, and they constrained both the societies. So, hierarchy was a feature of the Indian society. It constrained the Indian society and the Indian citizens and the Indian social structure. Similarly, equality was a fact in the Western world, in the Western society, and it bound or constrained the Western societal structure. Now, after having understood this difference, he made up his mind that he was going to go for a comparative study of institutions. Why? Because he was interested in studying social change. Now, when you want to understand social change, when you want to study social change, then what do? Suppose you have to study the social change of A, then you have to compare it with B, which has gone ahead in change. So, A is probably in stage 2 and B is probably in stage 5. So, in order to understand the social change, you have to compare both these societies. Similarly, if he had to understand the social change in India, then he would have to compare it with another standard or probably the Western world. Now, if he adopted, let's say, the culturological method, then this method would not be the right method to study social change. Why? In culturological method, what happens? Every society is treated as a unique society. So if, let's say, society A and society B are unique societies, then how can we compare it? It would be like comparing oranges and carrots. We cannot compare both. So if I want to compare these two fruits or these two societies, let's say, how do I do it? What is the method that I should use? Can I use culturological method here? No, I cannot. Now, ideological method. What is ideological method? Ideological method is also a culturological method, because here also what am I doing? I am studying the culture with the help of classical texts. So I would not be able to compare India and the West or the social change which India has gone through with the help of Indology, because if I see from Indology, then India is unique, the West is unique. Then what do I do? How will I explain the changes in the social structure of Indian society? How will I explain the changes in family, caste, bureaucracy? For this to happen, what do I do? For example, after we became independent, there were certain changes that India went through. In order to understand those changes, what did we do? We looked at the technological developments, we looked at the bureaucracy, the constitution, the developments in law. So these new elements we had to bring. If we had taken the help of Indology, then we would not have made this comparison. So this was the task before Dumont, that he wanted to compare India and the West, but he could not use Indology. So he had to use a different method. What method would he use? This was the question before him. So what did he do? This is, let's say, the Indian cultural tradition. In Indology, this is unique. Similarly, there are other structures, societal structures. Each one is an individual and each one has a certain uniqueness. But we had to compare, or Louis Dumont had to compare Indian culture with these. So what did he do? He came up with another concept, which was function. So he started listing down the functions of each individuality. That means Indian social structure, then this structure, this structure, this structure, this, all the four structures. And with the help of these functions, he created an abstract concept. Let us say this is India, and then we have concepts 1, 2, 3, 4. He built these abstract concepts on the basis of the functions. And then what he did? He placed them on a hierarchy, or he arranged them in a certain order so that a comparison could be made. For example, if there was, let's say, quality A, which was present in India but it was not present in others. Similarly, quality B was not present in India but it was present in others. So in this way, what happened? He made up abstract concepts and he created or tried to create a certain order among all these individualities. So he was finally able to understand social change. Now what did he understand? What was this social change? He understood that this social change that India went through, it was an ideological social change or related to ideas or values, something intangible, or you can say a mental construct. So, Indian society went through social change, and this social change, how did this happen? This happened when it came in contact with the West because of the British, and it was exposed to certain values like individualism, freedom, democracy. These values were not present in India before. So when India came across these values, then certain changes happened in India, and the Indians, they reacted to this Western culture, and there was some rejection as well as some acceptance. Some values were accepted and some values were rejected, and that is why this social change was a change in the cognitive structure, in the mental structure, or in the values, in the ideals. These were the changes which happened in India because of the West. Now, when we speak of cognitive systems, what are we talking about? Here, let's say we are referring to two systems or two cognitive systems, one of the Indian society and second of the Western society. So, the major characteristic or trait of Indian society was holism, very important, and for the West was individualism. It was the basis, it was the foundation. So if you are asked that what was the foundation of the cognitive system of the West, you will write individualism, and for the Indian society it was holism. Now there were other features also which were related to the main feature. For Indian society it was order, for the West it was atomism. For Indian society it was dharma, for the West it was secularism. Indian society it was interdependence, for the West it was liberty. For Indian society it was hierarchy, for the West it was equality. For the Indian society permanence, for the West it was mobility. Here ascription and here achievement. Now which institution of India had all these features? Which institution had this? It was the caste system. The caste system embodied all these features. So, when you are talking about the cognitive structure, we are talking about the caste system, and this was a question in one of the previous years, that Indian society is made up of certain cognitive structures, and this is the caste system or different castes. While for the West, all these features were embodied in an individual, in a person. There was no institution which manifested all these qualities. It was an individual. So, this clash between these two cognitive systems, it was like a clash between modernity and tradition, or between holism and individualism, or between the institution of caste system or an individual. Now, when anyone is studying sociology, they would know that there are certain differences in the social theories between the West and India. Now what about social practices? Were these different too? Were the social practices of India different from that of the West? Was it so? According to Dumont, he said that the Western society is no stranger to the attitudes and even to the ideas which caste society upholds. That means the qualities or the ideology of the caste system, it was in some way prevalent in the West also. Now he tried to find out how. How was this possible, or where was it seen? He found a functional equivalent of the caste system in the West. So Louis Dumont, although he was in favor of the culturological or the ideo-structural approach to India or to the study of Indian sociology, but he tried to find the functional equivalent of the individual in the Indian institution of caste. He tried to find out a relationship between the individual of the West and the caste system of India. Now what was this relationship? From an ideological perspective, both were unique, but in order to compare, what we did? We took the help of function, and he found that both served the same function. What was this function? He found that an individual, he is the main bearer of values in the modern society, and in India the caste system is the bearer. That means the dharma or the basis of the caste system is equivalent to the individual, because both are bearers of certain values in their respective societies. Just like an individual who is the bearer of values in the modern society, similarly the caste system, it is the bearer of dharma in the classical Hindu society. So both had the same function. So how could we say that both were different, or one was superior and the other was inferior? With this introduction, we can now start with Homo hierarchicus, or what was the body or the major portion or the major proponents of the study of the caste system which Louis Dumont pursued. He took the definition of Bougle. Bougles was a supporter or a collaborator with Durkheim, and Louis Dumont took his definition of the caste system. According to him, the caste system divides the whole society into hereditary groups, and these are distinguished from one another, at the same time they are connected together. So this is a contradiction. They are distinguished from one another, but at the same time they are connected to one another. The first characteristic was separation. Now separation in what aspects? Separation in case of marriage and contact. So people belonging to the different castes, they would not marry each other. So people were to marry within their own castes. Similarly, contact, they would not sit close to one another, or if the person belonged to an untouchable caste, then they would be staying outside the village. Then another factor where there was separation was in the case of food. The upper caste would not eat the food prepared by the lower castes. So this was the kind of separation which was followed. The second characteristic was division of labor. So here different professions were distributed between different castes. So each caste had a certain set of professions which it could pursue, and only in extreme cases or in certain exceptional cases was this rule allowed to break. Otherwise, in all situations, every caste would pursue the only occupation which was reserved for them, and they would not be allowed to pursue occupations of, let's say, the higher castes, or even the higher castes, they would not pursue the occupations followed by the lower castes. The third characteristic was hierarchy. Here all the castes, they were ranked in a certain hierarchy, and where the upper caste or the caste which was present in higher level was considered as superior, and the caste which was present in the lower level, it was considered as inferior. So, this superiority and inferiority was a characteristic of this caste system. Now, Louis Dumont, as stated previously, that he was mainly interested in the ideology of the caste system. So, till now we haven't reached this portion. We haven't read what exactly is the core of his study, what ideology was he trying to study. Now we have come to the major portion, which is the ideological principle of the caste system. This principle was the opposition of the pure and impure. So, pure and impure, they were not placed at an equal level. There was always a tension between the purity and the impurity. Now, when he was studying the caste system, Louis Dumont, he observed that in every geographical area there was a certain caste system which differed from the caste system belonging to other geographical areas. So, if we try to divide India into different territorial districts, suppose these are the territorial districts in India, and if we studied the different caste systems present in different districts, we would find certain differences. They would not be same, the caste system would not be same, the hierarchy would not be same, and similar castes would not be placed at the similar level. But Louis Dumont observed that almost in every place the Brahmins, they occupied the top place of the hierarchy. Then, could we say that the Brahmins were a caste? That was the question which Louis Dumont put. He said that just because the Brahmins occupied the top place of the hierarchy in all the territorial districts, could we say that the Brahmins were a caste? Then he said that no, we could not say so, because the Brahmins were only a Varna. They occupied the top place of the Varna system, and in every Varna there were several castes. So, every Varna was internally partitioned. There was differences in these Varna, and the hierarchical status of these castes, they were different. For example, if we see, if in place A, this is the hierarchy, and here the Brahmins occupy first position. Similarly, in other place, again this Brahmins occupied the topmost position. But he said that this Brahmin and this Brahmin, although they were Brahmins, but there could be a difference in the caste. Although by Varna both were same, but by caste they could be different, and that is why we could not say that this hierarchy was equal to this hierarchy, because the hierarchical status would not be same. Similarly, let us say there was one caste which occupied here position 3. It could be occupying position 2 here, then also there will be a problem. And similarly, in a different, let us say in one district also there could be several caste systems. So, then how will we say that, or how will we come at a universal definition or universal hierarchy of the caste system? That is what Louis Dumont observed? He observed that there were many types of caste systems, there were many hierarchies, and we could not arrive at a single definition or a universal structure of the caste system for whole of India. Then what was caste? If there was so much of diversity, then what was caste? According to Dumont, caste was a state of mind. That is why it is known as a cognitive structure. It was an idea, it was a value, it was intangible, it was something in the mind. What do we understand by this? It simply means that the caste system, although for an outsider it was appearing as if it was a united, a structure, a solid structure, but internally if someone was in the caste system or someone was a part of the caste system, that person would realize that there were so many divisions, so many subcastes in the caste system, and it was not a simple structure, or it was not a simple building, because inside there were so many interconnections, there were so many interlinkages. So the caste which was united from the outside, or which appeared to be united from the outside, was actually divided within, because a particular caste was a complex group. It was a complex group, and there was a successive inclusion of groups of different orders and levels. There were different subcastes, and there was differentiation in the profession, endogamy, that is marriage laws. It was different for different caste as well as subcaste. That is why this caste was, according to Dumont, it was a state of mind. So according to Louis Dumont, what was it? It was a state of mind. And then if something was intangible, if something could not be touched from the outside, if something was not united, then how would someone study it? What was the factor which could be used to study this complex intersection or complex building of different groups and levels and different functions? How would someone study it? According to Louis Dumont, one could study it by observing what principles governed it. So, according to Dumont, caste system was a state of mind. What do we understand by state of mind? By state of mind, we are referring to something which is intangible, something which is value oriented, something which probably we cannot touch, or maybe it does not have a structure. So if caste system did not have all these features, then what was it? It was something which was complex, it was divided within, and it was including different types of groups, levels, restrictions, functions. It had different rules for marriage, different rules for profession, and it also had certain fixed principles. This was observed by Louis Dumont, that although caste was present in the state of a mind and it was a mental construct, yet there were certain basic principles which governed the caste system from one place to another, and it was these principles which would help him construct the framework of a caste system, or it would help him to understand the ideology behind the caste system. So what was this ideology? The ideology was the opposition between the pure and the impure. This was the ideology. So in this way, the caste system, it was composed of hereditary groups, and it was both distinguished and connected together. As we studied before, it was because in three ways, or there were three characteristics. First was there was a hierarchy or status. Second one, there was rules which separated, let's say, marriage for food. And then third was different occupations for different castes. Now these occupations, they were dependent on one another for their living. So these three principles, they rested on the fundamental principle, and this fundamental principle was the opposition of the pure and impure. That means in all these three stages there was the concept of pure and impure. How? The first one was that in hierarchy there was separation between or opposition between the superior and the inferior castes. So there was purity and impurity. Similarly, there was separation in terms of marriage, in terms of food, because some food were considered impure, some were pure. Similarly, some castes were pure, some were impure castes, they were not fit for marriage. Similarly, in division of labor, there were some occupations which were menial jobs, lowly jobs, where some occupations were prestigious jobs. So in this way, there was purity and impurity associated in hierarchy, in the separation of marriage, food, contact, and in division of labor. So the entire existence of the caste system was because of this coexistence of two opposites, which was pure and impure, and there was a hierarchy in this whole process of purity and impurity. Why hierarchy? Because the pure occupied a higher level or level of importance, whereas the impure, they were at a lower level. Now when we talk of the critique of Louis Dumont, you will find that Dipankar Gupta was a major critique of Louis Dumont. Now because Dipankar Gupta, he has his own theories which he has elaborated in different books, along with his opposition to the theory of Louis Dumont. That is why we would like to see the entire theory as well as the critique in the next TFT. Till then, you can study or go through B.K. Nagla, Indian Sociological Thought, although only a portion of today's lecture has been taken from B.K. Nagla. Other portions have been taken from various sources as well as internet and different papers. So try to go through whatever we have taught today, and please drop a note if you do not understand anything. You can subscribe to Deciphering Sociology for any kind of updates that you want, and for TFT lectures any notification will be posted in our channel, and for any doubts this is the place that you have to post doubt, that is Brainstorming Sociology. We look forward to having you on our next lecture, which would be Dipankar Gupta. All the best and happy learning.